we have ArcGIS Field Maps with Jordan Miller. Mr. Miller joined Esri in 2016 with a background in local government industry knowledge, as well as years of experience working in the private sector. Jordan's primary role with Esri is focusing on solving business challenges with a geospatial approach. Jordan works with all levels of local governments in Wisconsin and has been working heavily in solutions and technology practices for land information, public works operations, law enforcement, fire and EMS with a focus on real-time, IoT, and situational awareness concepts and mobile applications. Mr. Miller holds a BS in Geography GIS from the University of Wisconsin, River Falls, as well as an MS in Sustainable Community Development, also from the University of Wisconsin, River Falls.
Well, today we're going to be talking about field maps. I wanted to go through a couple of slides. I say a couple, there's more than a couple, just brace yourself. But I want to kind of set the tone on what field maps is. I know it's still a relatively new product, but talk about why it has really kind of become what it is. And then lastly, in the slides, we'll go through, what's coming, what's on the horizon with field maps, what are some of the improvements that are going to be made, and hopefully answer some of those different questions on, what to be ready for your field operations workflows and some of those apps that everyone relies on. And I'll point the spotlight right at Collector for ArcGIS. I think that's probably one of the, between Collector and Explorer, probably some of the most commonly used applications right now. And, I'm sure there's information out there that you've seen or anything like that, but those applications in this, based on this first release, are scheduled to be retired at the end of 2021. So the clock is ticking on those applications. But I mean, if we look back, Collector's been around since 2014. It's seen some facelifts, it's seen some different things, but as these suite of applications has grown and functionality has been added, it's just starting to make more sense to have that field mobility workflow containerized in less applications. Instead of using 4 to 5 to 6 applications, you can use it in hopefully 1 to 2, depending on the whole workflow. So that's where I guess the drum roll introduction here for field maps, and using this as really that mechanism to go through that whole process, whether you're planning field work, navigating from A to B, and understand some of the stuff and that I speak about here is in concept too right now, because this is an evolving application, and understandably not all the functionality every field mobility application is in here yet, but really what we can focus on is this early release of it. I don't want to say early release of it too often, but the first applications that have been migrated into field maps, with Explorer, Collector, and Tracker for ArcGIS, to really support some of that foundational data collection or geospatial data exploration when you're out in the field. That comes in a couple of different flavors, but really this first release is intended to cover the map viewing, the map markup, data collection, asset inspection, and location tracking. So essentially encompassing ArcGIS Explorer, Tracker for ArcGIS, and Collector. So a lot of what I think I'm going to be talking about here should really be a review of some of the key functionality of these applications. But there is some nuance to this, especially when we're talking about blending all these capabilities into one application. So now instead of having to be an expert in 3 or more, we can look at just being in one. So, taking that best in breed mapping system with Explorer, the data collection system with Collector, and tracking technology with Tracker for ArcGIS, and bringing it into field maps. So like I said, one app to deploy and learn. Now that hopefully is an easy button as far as getting some of these tools out in some folks' hands that maybe might be resistant to technology, or embracing different ideas on how to do things, or changes to how they do their jobs. But also in simplicity, you're only going to have to sign into ArcGIS once. Cut down on some of that duplication of offline content, and really, again, to condense this and have a smaller app footprint, that things are going to stay current. You're not going to have to worry about keeping all those things updated, and there will be that consistency across all the applications. It's a full feature. It's two parts really, and if we'll certainly spend time on both pieces here, but starting with the mobile app, this is in its the genesis of this, again, to support viewing maps, collecting and updating data, recording and sharing tracks, transmitting that back to the parent organizational account, just like you would in Tracker for ArcGIS, and future support of indoor mapping. So then there is the back office web application, and this really gives a lot more power to that creator, that person who's the puppet master behind the scenes, who's setting up these projects for folks to take out in the field, and really having that fine-tuned control of not only as we're traditionally used to working with feature services, web maps and whatnot, and also securities and sharing of data, but really some fine-grained control in talking about which layers are editable, what are going to be our reference layers, base maps, map areas, attachments, so on and so forth. So the web application of field maps is really going to be intended for that type of purpose. So, I mean, I was going to say quick show of hands who's using it, and that'd been a bad joke because we're on a virtual call here. But, I wanted to start this out as just a real general review. So if some of the stuff sounds repetitive or, too rudimentary, hopefully we'll pick a few things up here towards the end that might pique your interest if you're already pretty familiar with this. So key capabilities, this was with the initial release. So back in 2020, I kept a slide in here because this was really the key release into production, as it came out of pre-release and beta testing and things like that. And the key capabilities that are in there right now and that we're going to take a look at today is that map viewing, the markup, the high accuracy data collection, so on and so forth. So again, there's not going to be as far as capability wise a whole lot new. You've been able to do these things in these other applications. This is just a different way of doing that, and how we can look at executing these tasks with a different application. So quick little review of access to field maps, as far as understanding the named user implications, things like that. So field workers, creators, or GIS professional named user types, viewers can still use field maps if they're just going to have view only rights to more of an explorer focused type experience. And then if there are any, well, as of recently, if you have a field worker, you do get an entitlement for Tracker, but also if you have Tracker as a premium application bound to any other named user or ArcGIS Collector app license. So pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy there on who can access what. Still works with multiple levels of named user licensing. Still, as you would expect, a field worker and above is going to have that ability to create and modify new records when they're out in the field, whereas you can still use a viewer to do some of the basic things like map markup and exploration. So let's get into the map viewing capabilities. So with the map support in and of itself, Symbology and advanced labeling is supported. A lot of great things can be done using Arcade. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at some of the Arcade examples out there or start to get familiar with it, I suggest taking a look. It can really add some great enhancements to your labeling and styling in the web maps and applications. Again, same thing with pop-ups. If you want to get, let me think about a way to put this. If you want to enhance the usability and enhance the understandability of some of your pop-ups and web maps and applications, supporting Arcade in those as well. Layer refresh and auto updates, again, just to help support if things are happening with any type of real-time data feed. That can be any type of AVL feed, any type of, if you have multiple track feeds in an application, so on and so forth. So you get it. Anything that's constantly changing, you can set up layer refresh or auto updates. A couple of map tools, and we'll take a close look at some of these in a demo at the end here. Obviously we're going to have the GPS that's going to allow you to rotate and navigate using sort of like that compass. User interface, ability to change base maps, add bookmarks, view legends, layers, toggle things on and off depending on what you want to see. Measuring tools, search tools, sharing options if you do decide to do some markup, or you want to communicate some of those different things that you're doing at a particular location. You have the ability to do that. Syncing map changes when offline, things like that. So just really, again, not super earth-shattering, but just want to review some of these things so we know that that what's included in the box, really. So markup layers, really handy tools here, especially for that that viewer type user role, or if you just want to send somebody out in the field and not have them edit any core data, but allow them to use that markup type workflow. There's a lot supported. So lines, arrows, areas, choosing the styling, labeling, and adding some attributes to some different polygons, polylines, points, markers, things like that. There are some freehand sketch tools. You can allow it to recognize some different shapes, moved graphics, clear out graphics if they don't fit what you want to do. And then again, you can share the markup with either a screenshot that it'll capture that you can go ahead and text or email or do anything like that, or you can bind it to an actual layer that will be stored that's not exactly contained to a specific feature service, if that makes sense. High accuracy data collection. Again, this is kind of going down that collector for ArcGIS route. This has been something that's been supported for a while now, but generally you have a couple of different options. You can either take advantage of the GPS that's in your device, if that's going to be suitable for that particular task. Or if you need better GPS accuracy, you can start to take advantage of the Bluetooth pairing of devices to get really that, high grade accuracy that you might need depending on the workflow. If it's underground utilities or, anything like that you really want to get very specific with, you can certainly do that. Some great partners out there as far as GNSS receivers. A lot of them work. I've heard of a lot of different examples of people using things that are on this list here or that go beyond that. And there's really a lot of different options that are going to help make that process easier. And again, take advantage of a higher quality positioning system and be able to pull that directly in and help improve your feature services. We don't need to go through too much of this. This is all, again, you can choose to store some of the GPS information along with the features that you're collecting. This will come right out of that GNSS receiver and really just capture more of the information that you would typically see just beyond where it is on the ground, essentially. A couple of things to make mention of here is that, you know, the same as with collector, averaging is supported. So if you're not familiar with averaging and what that means for data collection, if you're out in the field and you want to collect a point, so you're standing on top of a culvert somewhere, we all know that sometimes GPS positions can kind of bounce around or float around if you watch that icon on the display. So what this does is it'll take a set number of points and average them together to give you the highest confidence positional location. You can also set some tolerances in the web application portion of this, so you make sure that you're hitting those location tolerances, and you know, something doesn't get dropped 2 miles away, or if you're in a thick tree canopy somewhere or something like that. All right, inspection. So a couple of things to mention here. This gets into more of the support of, again, that collector and making sure you're able to edit your tables, your feature services, your you know, anything that you need to set up as like a relationship class or anything like that. So works with you know, non-version or traditional versioning. Online branch versioning is supported 10.8.1 and beyond for this. You know, inspection types, again, we can go pretty deep in the weeds on this. I know everybody's got a little bit different of a situation, but you know, if you're looking at adding a new inspection for any type of right-of-way asset that you maintain, know that you can still handle it with field maps. Smart forms, we'll get more into details on smart forms, but these are supported on layers and tables as well. But what this is going to allow you to do is going to allow you to really enhance that usability or add some specific logic, much as you would in Survey 1, 2, 3. So kind of think along those lines a little bit, but where you can apply conditional visibility if things are required or not, or hiding a question if the answer to something comes up as, you know, whatever you define. So being able to add, you know, some triggers in there that will enhance that field work experience, you know, really just goes to support the application itself and the back end web application of it too. Tracker, I know this has been out for a few years now, but you know, if you're unfamiliar with it, we can just do a really quick rundown. So Tracker before this was a standalone application. Again, it still is a standalone application that you can pick up until the end of this year. Otherwise, everything gets rolled into Field Maps. It is included with a field worker license, but essentially what it allows you to do is it's a very lightweight location tracking app, or it's a location tracking function that is supported in ArcGIS Online and Enterprise. You have the ability to, if you're being tracked or you want to communicate your tracks back to the office, to select whether you want that on or off, and then for how long you want to set that to run. This is a great tool that we found for different law enforcement agencies out there. A lot of great, I'm going to rephrase that. There are examples out there of some search and rescue type missions where they have to spread out in a forested area and look for people. So what this allows you to do is pull those tracks into a dashboard and have that refresh every 30 seconds to a minute, or if, well, there's other considerations to that to get it more frequent, but to use it in your GIS, in your entire system, really, because there's a lot of valuable data within that. Not just, you know, knowing where you've been, you can get a pretty up-to-date idea of where folks are when they're there. So indoor mapping, we don't need to spend a ton of time on this. This is kind of getting into that ArcGIS indoors conversation a little bit. But it does support this model if that is something that you are looking towards in the future. You know, there's floor picking. There's some different options for when there's multiple levels on top of, you know, like what you would imagine with different floors in a larger building. So it really just kind of provides you more flexibility in how you're going to interact with that data as it's stacked three-dimensionally and support those different data models. Universal app links. So this is something that has been around for a bit. You know, there's different URL schemes that are pretty well documented out there around using these apps, and Field Maps is really going to be no different in this. But what you can do is you can configure these URLs like we see in Shaner's email here, where it calls a specific application and then it triggers a certain response when somebody opens that up. Now, I know this looks like a jumbled mess, but there's actually some logic to this, where you can provide a link, and through a particular set of coordinates in there, you can have Field Maps open that and zoom into a specific layer or a specific location on a map. Or you can do the same thing by ID. So in the past, we've seen examples of this where folks will set up, you know, like dashboards to pull up a specific feature ID and open it in Survey 123, or vice versa, or things like that. But this slide's intent is really just to let you know that those URL parameters or things that you build to help simplify getting somebody from, you know, not just opening the app and having to find it on their own to, you know, kind of making that, again, that support that usability of it and make it just a cleaner product to use overall. All right, mobile device management. This is something that hearing about more and more lately. Really, as we're seeing mobile devices become more ingrained in everyday work, we're seeing more and more organizations providing these out, whether it's through an actual, you know, we're going to provide the phones, or it's, you know, some sort of bring your own device program where, you know, there will be support for it. Either way, if there is any type of situation where an organization provides out phones or smart devices to their entire staff, this application does support mobile device management, where you can automatically install and set different different characteristics of the application behavior from a console, if you're not really familiar with mobile device management. But it adds to the simplicity of getting this organization wide really easily to where no one really needs to worry about it. So who's it for? You know, we'll talk about the web app here first. But really, it's for the folks creating the projects, or for the folks that are trying to coordinate that field work, or, you know, have some understanding of what's all going to go into it. So what you're going to need is you're going to need to have a creator level license. It's going to work in both online and enterprise 10.8.1 and beyond. But what this is going to allow you to do, and we'll go into a demonstration of this, is configure those map properties. Again, going beyond what you would normally do with, you know, setting up a web map as you typically would for a collector, where you could go in and, you know, through the overflow menu, you could disable editing or configure pop-ups on what you wanted to see, or, you know, configure the different fields that would be editable. This is more of a containerized experience for that. It's a much more simplistic way to work with that, and all that information that you're going to see for that specific map is up in front of you. Also going to allow you to manage that offline experience for your users as well. So you kind of take the guesswork out of that a bit for those end users, and again, make it a bit easier. So, you know, we'll go through some of these different settings. I think it's personally better to take a look at them, you know, once they're up on screen here. But again, the feature actions, if you're gonna want people to be able to add a new feature at a certain location, copy a feature, and create a new feature based on that copy, edit multiple features, some different collection settings. Again, so the location accuracy tolerance, if you want, 3 meters and under, if you're using, any kind of, or if there is any kind of tolerance you want to set. Photo size and quality, relationships, snapping, if you want to enable snapping in the field data collection portion of this, that's doable. The GPS averaging, like I mentioned before, and GPS streaming. So all these are available when capturing the data. So I'm going to try and get through these next slides pretty quick. I feel like I'm going long on time here. Okay, feature templates. So this is some of these capabilities that are going to become more and more common, is being able to create custom feature templates based on the feature service you're using. Whether you want to have that set off a category type, coded domain, or anything like that, they would typically build a feature template off of. You can support that right through the web application. You can change some visibility things around name and description, or apply any kind of default values. You can also modify or delete these templates, or duplicate these templates and use them in other map configurations. Smart forms. So spend a little bit of time here. There's a lot more to come on this. Just off the bat, I think, to preface a lot of this stuff, because I think a lot of you guys have really became accustomed to the great smart form capabilities that are in Survey 123. But it's within Field Maps. It's a way to organize how you're going to create and update these attributes, as it pertains to the editable data type that you're working with. It's really intended to simplify that experience. So some of the key things around that is you're going to be able to use groups to organize fields. So if things make sense in a logical order, you can start to group them together to do that. Again, I mentioned conditional visibility. If something is required, or I don't necessarily need it required, or if you answered yes to the previous question, it won't show up, things like that. It's going to allow you to really format that form and all of its fields to best fit what you're trying to do, because I know the way it's laid out in a feature service doesn't always make sense. Things get added onto the end or things like that, and it just, this just gives you the ability to make it a bit easier. Allows you to add some descriptive text properties. So think about the hint when you're creating something in Survey 123. So if you want to add some descriptive text in there, or any kind of field name or caption, you can set things to be read-only fields, or set things to be required fields, if so be it. Input types, if you want to change any kind of input types and set up any kind of constraints. So if that's a text box, a date and time, radio buttons, barcode scanners, things like that. Really the idea, again, optimization of that data entry. We have a number of different options that are going to be available to you, based on the data type or the field type that you're using in that feature service. So you can, quickly pick what's going to be the best fit for the type of field work that you're doing. Again, we'll wrap up with smart forms on this, just using groups to organize fields, order and reorder, put them together the way you want to, that end user to see them as they're out there collecting data. You can provide a name of a group if that helps in simplifying that process, and then also being able to expand and condense groups based on screen real estate, which is always nice when you're using smaller screens. Condition of visibility, I don't need to run through this too much, but I will mention that You can use some archaic language to set up these constraints. So if you want to, start to enhance some of these smart form logic using Arcade, you can certainly take advantage of that. Offline capabilities, getting back into this with more of map exploration, data collection, things like that. There are options to enable and disable offline modes. You can do that from the web application. There's really 4 ways you can set up offline mapping. But if you need to diagnose and fix map layer issues or anything like that, you have the ability to create and manage these offline areas, whether it's a mobile map package, whether you do that through the web application, or whether you do that through the mobile application itself. Really supports a lot of flexibility there to make sure that you can get that map offline if you need it. You can use these to schedule updates as well if you want that to sync. If you know that that person's going to be back in service area, you can set up these things to make sure that all the data is up to date and good to go. So everyone's been waiting on this slide here. What's new in the most recent update here just last month, which is crazy. We're already in May, close to the end of May. Some different smart form improvements. Again, lots more to come on this. This functionality is just going to get better and better as this app matures and evolves. But some different input types, whether it's radio buttons or barcode input types. There's going to be some different submit experience improvements added to this. It's going to, so I don't know if you ever worked with Collector and you didn't fill out a required field and it wasn't always obvious what field was required. It's gonna highlight those required fields so you know which ones are required. So you can make sure to keep moving, not slow people down too much. So in the web app, there's been some enhancements as far as working with different groups. So multi-select groups, so you can drag and drop them into different areas to clean it up a bit. Some new map settings within the that map setting experience. So if you want to be able to edit multiple features at once, collect at a certain area, if I'll demonstrate that, copy features and then subsequently paste them, different collection settings, and then some different collection settings now available when you capture data. So there's some settings that are set up in there, whether it's through the averaging or the location tolerance, that you might want to be able to see when you're actually collecting a certain point versus going back into the settings of that particular map. Now you can do that as you're capturing the data itself. Hopefully that makes sense. Location tracking updates. Again, I think the biggest announcement there was having the tracker add-on license included in the field worker user type. That's a really nice enhancement. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So being able to also leverage the new track lines layer. This is a new layer for to help improved visualization of that quote unquote breadcrumb trail as you're tracked throughout the course of a day, and lay that down as a polyline. It does support a lot of different data types that get captured from whatever smart device you're using. So that is also captured in that polyline. So whether you're the maximum altitude, you want to pull in battery percentage if you need that, max speed, Z values, things like that. So it's a nice feature added to help with visualization. If you had somebody running around in the woods and you were tracking them, it's just going to look a lot cleaner than some breadcrumbs. Some of the mobile app updates, there are some menu button changes. There's full page screenshots when you decide to use a screenshot when you're sharing that from a view in the map viewer. In the photo pickers, selecting multiple photos, which is nice if you're looking to add attachments from the device versus from the camera. Oftentimes there's more than one photo for a particular record, so that's a really nice feature to just know which ones you checked, because I mean, if you're like me and you have the bandwidth of a goldfish, then you probably don't remember what one you attached in the first place. And then some new measuring tool features. They're experimental right now, but just know that some things might look a little bit different when you're looking in there. So again, we'll kind of run through some of these a little faster here. I'm just going to get to the roadmap because I think that really might be, if anybody's taking screenshots of the slide deck, might be a good one. Of course, this information's up on the web if you need to see it. Or you can always reach out to me. I think I recognize pretty much everybody's name on the attendee list. So if you need any information or want to spend a bit more time on some of this stuff, just let me know. So with that, we're going to get into a demo, but I want to throw this up there because I think this is always really good information. One thing that I do want to mention, and I think it can be kind of intimidating when there's new technology and you just spent a bunch of time learning other technology, to really want to dip your toes in the water, but there's some really great learning paths out there and guides on how to use some of these different tools, especially if you know you're going to need to migrate, a bunch of collector configurations into field maps. There's some migration guides. There's some guides for working with offline content, and just some fun stuff on like how to improve field data collection workflows. So I know you can't click on this right now, so if I'll likely share my slides out once we're done here, and keep these hyperlinks in there, so in case you want to start to use those. So what I'm going to do now is, hopefully, again, I said this is going to be an incident-free experience, I hope. I'm going to try and switch presenting over to my tablet. So let's take a look at it. So right now, if I open up Field Maps, this is what I'm going to see. Now, first thing I want to just take a look at is, what does it look like to view a map? And while we're a little bit before this, I was going to use one of the demo maps, and I thought, we don't want to look at California stuff. Let's look at Wisconsin stuff. So we can see my current location, right? Because I have tracking enabled right now. I'm sitting in my house in Hudson, and we have just some real basic information up there. But the idea here is, I wanted to use this to, demonstrate how we can work with some of these different tools, since it is a blend of all the of those three applications for now. So think about this in the context of Explorer. What are we really looking at here? Well, we have all the information laid out that we have included in that map. This is coming from a web map that I designed in my organization, and I just accessed it through the list of all the available maps in my ArcGIS Online org. So we can pop open the layers. I can see all the different available layers. I can toggle them on or off if I want to. The nice thing about this is, I'll get to in a minute, the markup, the very top toggle button, we can turn that on or off. So if things start to get all messy and you're tired of looking at your drawings, you can shut that off, or in lieu of deleting everything, just to clean it up. We can also enable my tracks. So if you want to see where your location tracks, basically your footprints have been as you've been walking around on a job site or anything like that, you can toggle that on and off as well, because we do know the screen real estate is important, and sometimes it can get pretty cluttered. And then again, through the whole layer list, we see all the different available layers that I have turned on. And for this purpose, I have just some federal land. I have current radar because it was raining when I put this together, and I thought that might be cool to look at. And then some different active fires some areas that we need to watch out for fires. So I can just hit that X box to close that down, or I can swipe it down and keep that layer list, as we see in the bottom left, accessible, so I can just swipe it up. So if, you know, just in that whole usability conversation of working with, you know, a smart device, kind of fits right into how we work with and manipulate these applications. So I'm gonna close that down just to make sure it's good. So let's take a look at a couple other things. Let's just take a look at bookmarks here. I created a couple, you know, bookmarks that we can go up here and look at some areas up near Bayfield. Oh, that looks, you know, looks pretty nice. You know, we can look at some other locations, but we can also start to create our own. So in this exercise, we'll just take a look at bookmarks. These are predefined bookmarks that you set when working with the web map. But if you want to start to set your some favorites, if you're in a particular area a lot and you want to set these locations so you can quickly reference them, you can just long tap on the screen, add to my places over here on the lower left, and we'll get a new option for saving a new favorite location. So that's a nice feature, just to be able to quickly navigate back to a certain location. You know, if you're going to be back there in that current, you know, in the next couple days or something like that, or maybe you want to indicate where you've dropped some map notes. So in the spirit of that, let's zoom into this particular area. This kind of a neat looking area. It looks like a radio tower. So let's start to work with some of the markup. So if we go to the overflow option on the top right and we go into the markup section, what we're going to do is I can click on here, and if I long tap, I can add a marker. Okay, so if I expand that marker, I can add a label. And I'm going to say radio tower. We can click OK on that. If I want to add a note to anything like that, we have that option. If not, then we're good. I can just hit done, and it'll leave that icon on the screen. So if I also want to hit markup and start to drag around here, and I don't have not really an artistic mind, so that's the best I got. So we can start to digitize areas around this. So again, if we're out in a, you know, doing a field survey or doing anything like that where we don't necessarily need to have the ability to edit a live feature service, but we want the ability to add some markup to a particular spot, this is a great way to start to do this and still keep people within using a you know, just a viewer feature type. We can do the same thing, same principle, swipe up on the new area, add a label to it. And we can pick something if we've already, so it caches, I should have mentioned that. It'll cache your inputs that you have in case you want to reuse them. If you have multiple different features, which is a really nice feature. So we'll just call this the woods, even though somebody's going to be like, well, why just circle the field? And we'll click done. Now, if I went back into markup and I just want to demonstrate this, and what if I just errantly drew a line? So we have some different options. If I want to go in here and clean something up, or I don't need it anymore, we have the, you know, we can delete that feature right off of the map like that. Or if we want to add any kind of arrow indication, I know that's a bit out of order. We can add that to those icons as well. I just hit done. So now we have a really nice drawing of looks like a cell phone tower up here in central Wisconsin. And if I want to share that, what I can do is I can go down here to the bottom right to the share option, and I can there's a couple of different options available to me here. I can either copy it. There will be an option to screenshot this, or we can also, again, bind this right to that layer itself. So I'm going to keep this on. I'm going to open this back up, And also I'd like to pull open the measure. So the measuring, a couple of different things here. We can do linear distances, just a quick demonstration of that. So we'll just say I want to get a quick idea of what this road segment looks like. Sorry, I'm just struggling here. Change the units around. So very, very intuitive, user-friendly on what that person in the field is gonna have the ability to do. We can do the same thing for polygons to start to get areas if we want to switch up the different types of units if they need that. You know, just for, again, for a quick heads up assessment of whatever's going on, can definitely do that as well. So that's really the map exploration portion of this. But you know, there's more to it really, and I do want to make sure I'm leaving some time here to go through the web application as well. But so we went through the sketching and taking notes in the mobile application here. But what if we wanted to be able to collect data? So if we wanted to be able to collect data, I'm just going to grab another one here. This fire hydrant seems like it's just an easy one to grab. And if I'm starting to build out a hydrant inventory, you know, it's simple. It's simple to just essentially leverage an existing feature service in a web map and be able to, I don't know why I just said no to that, to add features to it, modify features, or eliminate features if that is what you need to do. So I can just hit, and I'll walk through that again. I'll just hit submit. So it's back up. So I hit the plus button at the bottom right to collect here. Gives me an option for a new feature based on a feature template that I have assigned. I'm going to update that point to grab the location I just dragged it to, since I'm not wanting to capture at my current location. You know, same thing, support for attachments and photos, and then working with that desired schema. So again, from the experience you're going to have from using Collector to using this, it's not a whole lot different. But where it does get a bit different is, again, having some of the different capabilities that we're going to see here in the field application. So I know I'm running over time. Let me know if we have a hard stop. So I'll just share my screen one last time, and then hopefully you guys won't have to listen to me anymore. Okay. So this is the web application, what you're going to be able to access through whatever organization account you're using, ArcGIS Online or Enterprise after 10.8.1. So if I just opened up, let's just open up this reference map. What we're going to see is a lot of different settings, and this is what's going to allow you to really have that fine-grained control for the end user. So if it's just an overview, if you want to as easily as hide that map in the mobile version so you're not cluttering things up, or if you want to go in the content and add different layers, or just start to create map areas for offline use. And you know, again, how it's going to handle things, features and attachment delivery when you are offline, or if you want to use any kind of tile package for the offline base map. Settings kind of gets into the whole picture here. So whether it's location tolerance, you know, your accuracy tolerance, if you want to enable averaging, so getting those multiple GPS locations and averaging them together to enhance that positional accuracy. GPS streaming if you're collecting, you know, your walking or your movement. Photo size, things like that. So it really gives you that fine-grained control of how that user is going to interact with that data in the field. Again, if you don't want them to be able to collect that and maybe only update certain things or copy features and use things based off a copy. Then also, if you know the sharing controls are right here in the settings pane. right through the web application where you can change around the setting parameters if you need to get this shared to a group for, let's just say, a sign inventory or some sort of field assessment. You can quickly change that right through here, right through this web application, and make sure that everyone's up to speed and that map is tightly configured and ready to go for your field work. Holy smokes, I felt like I went through that last part really fast. So, was there a hard stop at 3? I know it's
you actually can probably go till another 5 minutes, since we didn't start till 2:05.
Oh, okay.
Another 5 minutes, or if anybody has any questions,
yeah,
please put them in the chat.
Let's take that 5. Let's take that 5, and if there's something that anybody wants to spend any kind of time on, let's do that.
What was the date again for this to work with ArcGIS Online?
This is available right now. You have access to this right now. As of December, it was in full release in ArcGIS Online, and then it works in Enterprise 10.8.1 or later.
Okay. I love to see how the closed captioning picks up ArcGIS Online.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, ArcGIS Online. I see that.
Sometimes it's it just had ArcGIS Online. Yeah. That's pretty fun. Will Collector be retired or no longer supported as of the end of 2021?
It will be retired. Yeah, so no longer supported. I don't know. That's where it gets kind of complicated. I'm not exactly sure if that just means like, it's going to go the way of, like what's going to happen with ArcMap, or if it's just no longer going to be accessible from, an app store or whatever that means. I would suggest starting to look at migrating some of those projects. So.
Okay.
Is there a date for, this is totally off subject, but you did kind of hit on it. Is there a date set now for desktop to be retired?
Last I heard was 2025, but I'll caveat that with, there's still, you'd be shocked at what people still have duct tape together and working. So, yeah, that 2025 is what I heard. Support cycles have changed a little bit in the past couple of years as far as the .0 releases to the .1 releases. So I know they're not really adding any enhancements to ArcMap right now. So it's really, it's going to work, I guess, if that answers your question.
Anybody else has any questions for Jordan? Go ahead and you can unmute yourself.
Is anybody, I guess I'll ask a question to the group and somebody can jump in if they want. Is anybody using field maps? Has anybody played around with it? All right. There's a couple of yeses. All right, good. So, yeah, I thought about the whole raise your hand joke and I was like, oh, that's really cheesy. But
we could have run a poll, I guess.
I could have run a poll. And then I just got caught up with the cheesiness of the joke. But no, that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that some folks are taking advantage of it. Yeah, it's pretty fun to work with. I'm excited for the advancements in the smart forms, and as more features are brought over. One thing I didn't mention is there's still going to be support for some of the other mobile applications. There's going to be functionality pulled in from those others like Workforce or Quick Capture, but those will still be standalone apps as well.
right. Well, I think it's probably time to wrap things up. Thank you so much, Jordan, for being here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.